Hello and welcome back to the True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
How's everybody doing? We got a great case for you this week. This is a heartbreaking and frustrating case, I guess would be the best way to describe it.
That's a great way to describe it. Great way to describe it. A lot of ups and downs in this case.
It exposes flaws in the justice system that can actually get innocent people killed.
Yes.
It's the worst case scenario.
It also exposes a justice system that chooses to concentrate on things that I think the majority of us would deem less important because
less
it's involved
dangerous to
with
society.
Money.
Marijuana.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone being locked up for selling a little bit of weed or a DUI versus someone who committed a violent rape and getting bond and walking on the streets, to potentially start killing witnesses and things like that. Yeah,
that's frustrating.
I'd call those flaws. And there's an innocent baby that's, there's a trigger warning for you if you don't like crimes that are committed against children. That, granted, we can't say for certain because the infant's body's never been found in this case, but it's assumed that a baby was killed in this, and all because this violent offender was let out on bond awaiting trial and was free to walk the streets. But let's get into it.
You only knew him when he was young. You'd ask yourself, how come? Like he's trapped in a snowbank, his whole heart is snow. How come? Oh Marvin, how come? You can find him riding round drunk from whatever store he's coming from. You can bet he's looking for a fight, do what he wanted that night. If you only knew him when he was young, we'd ask yourself, how come? Like he's trapped in a snowbank, his whole heart is numb. How come? Oh Marvin, how come? Didn't have to take it that far. She already had her share of scars. Oh, the innocent blood, the obvious disregard. You don't deserve to die. I hope that you live hard. You live hard. I hope that you live hard. They say you only knew him when he was young. But ask yourself, how come? Like he's trapped in a snowbank, his heart is so numb. How come? Oh Marvin, how come? You only knew him when he was young. But ask yourself, how come? Trapped in a snowbank, his whole heart is numb. How come? Oh Marvin, how come? Didn't have to take it that far. She already had her share of scars. Oh, the innocent blood, the obvious disregard. You don't deserve to die. I hope that you live hard. You live hard. Oh Marvin, you live hard.
All right, for our case this week, we are going to Michigan.
Oh, Michigan.
Michigan in the late 90s, specifically Cedar Springs, which is a small rural city outside of Grand Rapids. And we're going to meet a young woman, 18-year-old Rachel Timmerman, who in August of 1996 was getting her life on track. She'd had her fair share of, she'd gotten into a little bit of trouble here and there, but she was a good person. She had just had her first baby 6 weeks prior to this on August 6, 1996, when she goes out for the first time. She's had her baby.
Right.
It's been 6 weeks and, she needs a night out. So she's going to leave her baby a little girl named Shannon with her mother and her younger sister, and she's going out for the first time because she got invited to a card game and a gathering, like a little hangout,
right?
With a family friend of hers, a guy named Wayne Davis, called her up and invited her to play cards with him at a friend of his trailer. So this Wayne Davis guy, he's got a friend that he plays cards at his trailer all the time. Wayne Davis was 54 years old. He was a disabled veteran of the Vietnam War.
Wow.
And he'd seen combat. He'd seen some stuff. He had a metal plate in his head and some severe PTSD from what he had witnessed over in Vietnam.
It's kind of. Do you think it's kind of weird that an 18-year-old wanted to go hang out with a 54-year-old like Vietnam vet?
Not necessarily.
No.
Like we said, he's a family friend.
That's true.
He seemed like a solid dude.
And he probably told her,
that,
I'll have other guys here, whatever, other people here that you could hang out with as well. And I'm sure she was looking for a distraction. 6 weeks after having a baby, she's probably not feeling her best.
Right.
Probably want to get out, meet some new people, feel like life is back to normal.
I get the vibe there wasn't much of a nightlife scene in this town. The way that people would party and hang out is like get together like this at either a bonfire or a trailer and play cards or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not like there's nightclubs and things like that. It didn't seem like there was a whole lot of options as far as that goes.
Right. Even Grand Rapids isn't really like a huge city. So if this is a suburb of Grand Rapids, it's got to be a pretty, small country town, if you will.
Yeah. So she takes Wayne Davis up on his offer to go hang out, play some cards. And yeah, like you said, Wayne Davis was inviting, several people over, and maybe she'd have a chance to meet somebody new there.
Right.
Or whatever. She was no longer with her, her baby daddy. They were separated. Mm-hmm. They were on, I think they believe they were on decent terms. They were like splitting custody of the baby.
Right.
But nonetheless, she was single at the time. That's a little bit more about Wayne Davis, the man that invited her over. He was never seen without his camo army jacket on, and even joked about how it was the only thing holding his broken body together. He was living on disability, obviously having had a rough time in the war. He was retired, and
right.
he was just spending his time with friends, hanging out, drinking, and that sort of thing. But generally a harmless guy.
Right.
Wayne would host weekly parties at his friend's trailer where guests would drink, smoke weed, and play cards. And on August 6th, Rachel accompanied that party. She left her baby with her mother and her younger sister so she could take up Wayne Davis's offer and attend the party. The trailer where the party was being held was only 1 mile from where she lived at her mother's trailer. And she didn't have a car at the time, so she walked to the trailer. And at some point during the card game, 43-year-old Marvin Gabrion and his teen nephew Mikey arrived carrying 2 12-packs of beer. This Marvin and Mikey were 2 people that Rachel was unfamiliar with, never met them before.
Right.
And this Marvin Gabrion is the focus of our case this week. He's one of the more, we would come to find out, one of the more evil people that we've ever learned about. This guy is infuriatingly evil, I would say.
Yes, which was crazy because, like, as a child, which we're about to get into, he wasn't perceived that way.
Right.
Took a hell of a turn in adulthood.
Yeah, so it's a good segue to go into his childhood. Marvin Charles Gabrion was born on October 18th, 1953. Interestingly, one day after my birthday. He shares a birthday, however, with Lee Harvey Oswald, the guy that supposedly killed JFK. Supposedly.
Right. Allegedly.
Maybe someday we'll do that case. Zac Efron and Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Okay.
JCVD.
Right. Jean-Claude, man, I ain't heard of him in forever. Freaking Bloodsport, kickboxer.
Yeah.
Classic movies, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a fun group there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Marvin was the 5th of 6 children in his family. He had 3 older sisters, an older brother named Mike, and a younger brother named David. His sister described him as a real good little boy who was happy all the time and seemed to get along with everybody. Another sister remembered him as shy and quiet as a child. The Gabrion family lived in Grand Rapids during Marvin's early years before moving to a cabin in Walhalla, Michigan. The relationship between his father and his mother was not a stable one. So this is a little bit of, there was some violence and turbulence in the household that he grew up in, which may have led to some of his, an explanation for his behavior later on.
Right.
Both of them were involved in extramarital affairs and often fought with each other. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But when Marvin was 12, the family settled in White Cloud, Michigan. And as a boy, Marvin worked odd jobs, cleaning boats, mowing lawns, and performing yard work. and was the only one of his brothers to do this. So seemingly the most driven and motivated of the Gabrion boys.
Absolutely.
He was also known as a good student. Didn't get the best grades, but was well liked by his teachers and things like that.
Not a
he also
problem
played,
student, right?
No, not a problem at all in school. Also played in multiple sports in school: basketball, football, and track and field. One of his teachers later testified that he had no disciplinary issues in high school, though he had a relatively high number of absences in his senior year. So it seemed like he started to not care so much about school in his senior year.
But, I mean, isn't that all of us, though? I mean, it's your senior year.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a relatively high number of absences, it's probably going to be in your senior year, especially since you can drive to school.
Yeah, especially if you've already got your credits locked up, like
Yeah.
you can graduate regardless of what happens.
Exactly.
A high school girlfriend of his described him as a, quote, nice guy, fun-loving, and sweet. As we mentioned, he didn't cause problems in school. At one point, he even walked away from a fight. I'd like to hear more details on that, though.
Yeah, I know, right?
It doesn't necessarily prove you're like not a troublemaker. Maybe
you knew you were going to get your ass whooped.
The scariest dude in school squared off.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the scariest dude in school squared off, and it's like, man, he's really got a lot of, maturity.
Right.
He walked away from that fight.
Well,
It's
yeah,
like,
he didn't
knew
want to
was gonna
die.
get his face bashed in. Yeah, exactly. One of his brothers, his brother Mike, described him as nerdish. And we talked about some turbulence going on in his household between his mother and father. His father was often drunk when he came home from work and regularly made fun of Marvin and mistreated him.
Damn.
I hate to do this, but it reminds you a bit of Gacy. Remember Gacy's father was a drunk that constantly ridiculed him and called him like homophobic names and things like that?
Yep.
Get a bit of those vibes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then his brother's calling him a nerd and shit. And he has multiple brothers, right? Doesn't he have 2 or 3 brothers? I know we said that earlier, but yeah.
2 brothers, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sure he got picked on quite a bit. His brother described him as a nerd. It's like, that just sounds like an older sibling to me.
Explains a little bit of, the style of criminal that he was later on, got off on the power of, beating and subduing a woman and things like that. Like maybe it's because he had no power of his own growing up, constantly ridiculed by his father and his older brothers.
Yeah, absolutely.
His father also had a bad temper. Once he repeatedly slammed Marvin's head into a 2x4 because he had been trying to burn some garbage near the house.
Jesus.
So physical abuse as well. When Marvin was a young child, he became very ill and his father refused to have him seen by a doctor. And it wasn't until Marvin came down with a high fever and started to act strange that his family finally took him to the hospital, where doctors diagnosed him with pneumonia and operated on him to remove a leather-like material from his lungs.
Wow.
Another common thread with some of these violent serial killers is severe illness when they're young.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that they barely survive. It's almost like something it does something to their psyche.
Yes, it does. Also the head trauma. I mean, if we know this instance of his dad banging his head into a 2x4, it's like, then there were others. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you couple this with, his parents weren't around. When they were around, they were fighting with each other. They were violent and verbally and physically abusive to young Marvin. And then the fact that you couple that with the fact that they weren't there other times. So like they were constantly absent from the home, leaving his sisters to take care of him and his brothers. So they're not there, but then when they are there, they're being abusive to him.
Right.
Marvin's mother also left home for long periods of a time. On one occasion, she took David and stayed with another man for several months.
Damn. I guess David is his brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
On another occasion, she had a nervous breakdown and her children were taken out of the house for a time. So very turbulent home.
Yeah.
Once when his sisters were left alone to take care of him, he fell ill and developed such a high fever yet again that he became delirious and walked out into the snow where his siblings found him lying in a snowbank.
Damn, so he got another fever. This is a separate.
Likely that had they not gone looking for him and found him, that he would have froze to death out there, you'd think.
Right? That's crazy. Usually,
I don't think he was going to leave on his own accord.
I feel like usually when you have a fever, you're cold, right? I mean, you got like a shake, he was cold.
It was so bad that he was delusional and, wandering around like a zombie, I suppose.
Jeez. Lying in a snowbank, could have died of hypothermia quick.
Yeah. Would have saved lives later on, sadly, to talk,
Yeah, unfortunately.
Maybe it would have been for the best.
Yeah, maybe.
Marvin's sister Christine recalled her parents arguing about and physically fighting with one another, including scratching and hitting each other. They even knocked each other's front teeth out.
Jeez.
So, yeah.
Both of them knocked each other's front teeth out. I feel like what the fuck? It's like maybe they got
an eye for an eye, I guess, huh? Tooth for a tooth.
I guess, yeah.
Maybe his father knocked his mother's teeth out, and then she like waited and bought her time and like just really connected with a frying pan or something on him to get back.
Yeah, just retaliated while he was taking a nap on the couch.
Yeah.
Pop!
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
His other sister Yvonne remembered a time when her mother threw a butcher knife at her father.
Okay.
So
it's not good behavior.
As an adult, Marvin would become a career criminal with charges of assault, robbery, and multiple DUIs on his record. And we don't have a ton of details about his early crimes. But this is all to just set up this night in which Rachel has gone to this trailer to play cards.
Right.
This man, Marvin Gabrion, comes in. She's never met him before and does not know what we just told you. You know, the background of this guy. We would come to find out is a very dangerous person.
Right. Not
sure how he became acquaintances, with Wayne Davis, the man hosting the party. But it's just a sad thing that he was brought into the fold here because this sets off a whole chain of events.
Well, like a lot of these,
and a lot of people died because of this night.
Right. Absolutely, they did. But like a lot of these sociopathic criminals, especially repeat criminals, man, they have a certain charm about them. You know, they have a way of luring people in. Obviously. And maybe Wayne probably didn't have a lot of friends, especially living out there in the middle of nowhere. He's an old Vietnam vet, so he probably took friends where he could get them, and then this guy, they just hit it off.
This guy didn't have much better going on. Marvin, I don't think he's employed. He's looking to go get fucked up and start trouble, which is what he succeeds in doing on this night, unfortunately.
Yep.
Yeah, so now we have a better idea of who Marvin Gabrion. Unfortunately, Rachel Timmerman did not know, anything about this guy. And we go back to the night of August 6, 1996. The night carried on and the drinking intensified. And unsurprisingly, egos emerged and a heated argument occurred between Wayne Davis and Marvin Gabrion. Wayne had made an offhand comment about how Marvin was shit-faced, which set Marvin off. Marvin getting into Wayne's face, calling him a motherfucker, and grabbing Wayne by the throat. Things would settle down, but the party wasn't quite as fun after that outburst, and soon Rachel decided it was time to go home. At which point Wayne, the host of the party, the man that invited her, offered to walk her home since it was the middle of the night and she only lived a mile away.
Right.
She took him up on the offer, and as they were walking home, Marvin and his nephew Mikey pulled up alongside them in Marvin's new convertible and offered them a ride. Sadly, they accepted and got into the car. It's really sad because it was a mile walk, It's like he really didn't need this ride.
Right. But it was cold though. I'm sure.
It was cold, and when I think about it, I'm like, I'm not so sure they had an option. Like, I'm pretty sure even if they said no, that there's nothing stopping Marvin, who's younger, more fit than this 54-year-old Vietnam vet who's disabled, and this young woman. He would have, and who knows if he had a gun on him at the time, he would have forced her into the car, I believe, because he was set in what he was going to do.
Oh yeah, he would have.
So they get in. Marvin actually did drive to the front of Rachel's home, and you wonder if this is maybe to kind of to learn where she lives, because he only pulls in front of her home briefly before he decided that the night wasn't over quite yet. Rachel tried to protest, but it was too late. He drove off and would take them out to a desolate area. And after stopping in a field, Marvin ordered Wayne and Mikey out of the car and drove off with Rachel, telling them, get the fuck out. And when Mikey resisted, saying, I don't even know where I am or how to get back, he threatened Mikey that he would beat his ass if he didn't get out.
Damn. And Mikey is his cousin, right? Or wait,
Mikey's his nephew.
Mikey's his nephew. Okay, I'm like, I know they showed up at the party together, Marvin and Mikey.
Yeah, Mikey's his brother's son.
Okay.
And so Marvin would take Rachel deeper into the woods, so far in that they couldn't. He basically got her far enough back there that no one could hear her screams. He then stopped and forced himself onto her, violently beat and raped Rachel, who fought back as much as she could. He even bit her on the nose hard enough that he tore cartilage, causing her nasal cavity to fill with blood.
Jeez.
And after after raping her twice, he decided to take her for a walk looking for a body of water where he could have her wash the evidence off of her. Along the walk, he warned her that if she told anyone about what he had done, that she would kill her baby in front of her. So he was aware that she had, a 6-week-old baby and was using that against her.
Yeah.
Not knowing where he was, apparently, as well as he thought he did, being in the middle of the night in the woods, he was unable to find the body of water, and decided to rape her again in the dirt this time. Rachel, at that point, tried a new tactic. We've talked about this in our, fight, escape, survive episode.
Yep.
Sometimes you need to use the tactic of trying to, sadly, it's unfortunate because it's just so gross to think about, but you have to try and get them to like you and believe that you're into what they're doing sometimes if you have no other option, whatever tactic you have to use. And she tells Marvin that rather than the dirt, they should go back to her home where they could continue in her bed.
Right.
And amazingly, this dumb fuck actually believed her and drove her back to her mother's trailer. And as they pulled into the driveway, Rachel jumped out and ran inside the trailer, locking the door. And already inside, this shows you that, Wayne Davis was actually a friend of the family. He was already in Rachel's mom's trailer. Him and Mikey had made their way back out of the woods and had made their way to Rachel's mom's trailer where they were sitting at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
She yelled at them when she entered the trailer to not let Marvin in and locked herself in the bathroom where she armed herself with a hammer. Wayne came in to the trailer, approached the bathroom door, attempting to open it. And finally, Wayne began yelling at Marvin, telling him to get out, at which point Marvin warned Rachel about calling the cops and left.
Jesus.
So quite a night
Yeah.
that Rachel just endured. Used, in my opinion, a very smart and tactic to get out of that. Who knows what he would have done that third time. He may have killed her at that point.
Absolutely. That was fast thinking.
Mm-hmm. The next morning, her mother, she of course told her mother what had happened, and her mother encouraged her to report the rape to the police. Rachel would be examined by the hospital where they collected semen DNA from inside of her, and Marvin would be reported to the police by the hospital about what had happened.
Right.
And they were not all that surprised. They knew Marvin. This is a small town. He was a career criminal.
Right.
They'd had many run-ins with him. Meanwhile, Marvin was nowhere to be found. So he was on the lam, probably knowing that she had gone to the police, or assuming that she would.
Yep.
Then a week later, the police receive a faxed letter from Marvin that he had faxed from a grocery store that included a letter which stated his side of the story, which is fucking disgusting and graphic. So, trigger warning here. He claimed that on the night of the party, Rachel had desperately wanted to have sex with him, and he refused because he didn't have a condom and that he didn't want to get her pregnant. So instead, he allowed her to give him fellatio. He said that when he finished, that she used her fingers to insert his semen inside of her vagina to get back at him for turning her down.
Yeah, that sounds legit.
Right. Totally believable story, bro.
Wow.
But it just makes him that much more despicable, doesn't
I
it?
know.
Like, he's now blaming her for his violent rape of her.
Right. Because she wanted him so bad. Come on, bro. Give me a fucking break.
Right.
You're like 43 years old. Like, I don't know.
Yep. So even with the DNA evidence, even with all they had multiple witnesses, they had Rachel's story, which is, incredibly graphic and true. Mm-hmm. It would still take 6 months for Marvin to be arrested and officially charged with the rape. So now you have Rachel, who's been threatened. Her baby's life's been threatened by this man. And for whatever reason, they need to investigate him more, whatever they need to do to make an arrest. I don't know how you need more than this.
Right.
But in the months following the rape, Rachel would attempt to turn her life around. Marvin had still not been charged, so she spent all of her time focusing on her now 18-month-old daughter, her family, and her work at a local restaurant. Still, though, believe it or not, during that time, she actually had been arrested first. She had a prior arrest. About 4 months before the rape, she had been caught selling weed, and she had had a zero-tolerance probation order put on her. So while she's minding her business following this, this traumatic thing that happened to her, someone reported to the police that Rachel had been drinking and hosting parties at her mom's trailer. A parole officer did an unannounced visit to the trailer and found a liquor bottle on top of the trash and sentenced her to 5 months in jail for probation violation.
Yeah, this is so important. I'm so glad you guys did this and acted so fast.
Right. This violent rapist is out walking the streets, but she sold a little weed and she's drinking at her own fucking mom's trailer.
Right. Oh man, God forbid this.
So lock her up.
It's not like you caught her.
In a
it's not
way,
like you caught her like under the influence driving a car or being.
I know, right? Or out at someone else's place partying. Like she's at her own home.
That's insane, dude. It's crazy
It's
that they would
nuts.
prioritize. Imagine being her at this point. Like, are you kidding me? You're coming here to arrest me? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The one thing I'll say is that jail may have been the safest place for her at the moment.
That's true.
Because Marvin is out there and clearly can benefit from getting rid of her because she's the main witness in that rape charge.
Yeah.
And Rachel actually used the time well while behind bars for that during that 5-month period. She ended up getting her GED.
Okay.
And she had began her sentence in January of 1997. Meanwhile, Wayne Davis, the family friend who had invited Rachel over on the night that she was raped, disappeared. Shocker. He disappears in February of 1997, the day before he was due to serve a 90-day sentence for DUI. So Marvin knows he's going to jail, where he may spill the beans to get out early.
Yep.
And the timing is interesting because, he disappears the day before he's set to go to jail. And Wayne, as we know, was set to testify against Marvin for the upcoming rape trial. And a friend of Wayne's saw him on the day he disappeared with Marvin. Marvin was there supposedly helping him work on a car. So,
you know what I just realized? This was actually a pretty smart move on Marvin's part too, like to preserve himself, because if you make this man disappear right before he's supposed to go to prison, it's like he could have ran off. Like that would be my first instinct, right? Like as an officer or whatever, I'd be like, oh, okay, Wayne, he fled the state because he doesn't want to go to jail. I get it. So, as far as I don't really think they're looking for a body. I don't really think that they think that Wayne.
Yeah, and Wayne Davis was, he was an older guy with a disability, and
right.
Just police are like, if he disappears, it's like kind of like whatever. They're not going to look that hard for him.
Exactly. It's for a DUI too. You know what I mean? It's not like a violent crime we're looking for. Like this guy's not dangerous. He's just, I would think that he just, like I say, he would just fled the state. So that would, in that sense, it would seriously slow down the investigation.
Yep. So Wayne's residence was largely undisturbed when the disappearance was discovered. Aside from a stolen radio system, his army jacket was still draped over the chair in his residence. That jacket, we know, he never took off.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
The idea that he ran away without his, famous camo jacket is unlikely.
Yeah.
Police later discovered that Marvin had attempted to pawn the radio that was missing from his trailer a few weeks after his disappearance. But it would be several more months before Marvin was finally arrested and charged with that rape. Not charged with the disappearance of Wayne Davis because they didn't have, anything other than one witness saying that he was with him on the day he disappeared, but they didn't have a body and have anything like that. For all they know, he could have just ran off.
Mm-hmm.
So Marvin's arrested finally and charged with the rape of Rachel Timmerman. And his arrest warrant included 3 witnesses that were subpoenaed to testify in court: Rachel, Wayne Davis, who is now missing, so good luck with that one, and his nephew Mikey. So
yeah, and
the trial date
he's
would
threatened the shit out of Mikey.
Oh my God,
I can't imagine he would say anything against his uncle at this point, especially knowing what he's capable of.
Yeah, he's seen it firsthand, no doubt. So the trial date would be set for June 5th, 1997, and his bond was set at $75,000, which unfortunately his mother came up with 2 weeks later, setting him free to the world until his trial. I don't know
That's insane.
where his mom got this money. But she came up with it nonetheless. Maybe she took out a loan or something.
Yeah.
But he's now got plenty of time to, cut some loose ends here and make it impossible to get that rape charge to stick if none of the witnesses show up to court.
That's right.
And so Rachel would be released from jail on May 5th and began staying at her father's house rather than her mother's trailer. Her father apparently had a nice home, and it seemed a little safer there for her and her baby.
Right.
And as the date of Marvin's preliminary hearing came closer, Rachel, of course, worried about having to testify against him. She told her parents that Marvin had threatened her on several occasions, had actually come and was stalking her and had found her in public on several occasions and walked up to her and threatened her. He told her that he knew where her family lived and worked and that she better not show up to the hearing the following month or he would hurt them. She also said that she was having reoccurring nightmares about Marvin and believed that he would kill her. There were these threats that he had made to her in public. She called the police and reported these threats, and nothing was done.
God, we see this way too often, don't we? Until it's too late.
They're really just leaving her out there like a lamb for slaughter, in my opinion. Like, they know the kind of violent offender this guy is.
Yeah.
She's reporting that he's been threatening her life, her family's life, and I just don't know how that's not enough to bring him back in. Like, or at least to put him under surveillance until the trial. You know what I mean? Like, have a fucking police officer follow this guy around.
You think?
And if he's like sitting outside of her home, that's grounds for arrest, in my opinion.
Absolutely. There needs to be at least a restraining order.
Right.
But
like, that should have just been part of the deal, period.
But maybe
you don't go anywhere near Rachel.
Maybe Rachel's past had something to do with it in the eyes of the police. You know, they're like,
Possible,
well, she's a
right?
criminal too, you know, kind of run with the dog, get the fleas type deal. You know, maybe they didn't take it quite as serious.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hate to think that, but could be a possibility.
Yeah. So this, you know, she's worried about this, but according to her parents, leading up to, you know, the trial on June 3rd, 1997, Rachel seemed happy. She told her father that she was going to go out on a date with a man, and the man had told her to bring Shannon along. So this young guy keeps calling her mom's trailer, or I mean her dad's home, and builds a relationship with Rachel, talking to her on the phone, and convinces her to go out on a dinner date with him. And he says, I don't mind that you have a baby. You can bring the baby along.
Uh-huh.
It sounds fishy to us, right?
Very.
Especially knowing that someone would love to get rid of her and her baby.
Yep.
Unfortunately, she went along with this. She told her father that she would be home within a few hours, as it was only a dinner date. The young man that picked up Rachel and baby Shannon was a man named John Weeks, who sadly, we would later find out, was a friend of Marvin Gabrion at the time, and was clearly either paid or pushed by Gabrion. You know, maybe he owed Gabrion something. There's speculation that he owed Gabrion for some money for a drug deal or whatever it was.
Right.
And
he was like, you do this, we'll call it even type deal.
Yeah. And of course, the time that Rachel was supposed to return to her dad's home came and went. The next day, Rachel's father receives a letter, allegedly from Rachel. But we've seen this time and time again where killers send letters that are apparently supposed to be from the victim. It says, and it is in her handwriting. It says, quote, "Dad, I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye. That guy that picked me up is like the man of my dreams. Shannon bonded with him so well, and so did I. Right now we're on vacation, and we might get eloped. He already asked me to marry him. I'll be gone for a couple of weeks. I would call you on the phone, but I think you'd try to talk me out of the marriage. I'll write more letters and send you an address when I get one. Love, Rachel."
This is just so suspicious. The fact that she doesn't even use the guy's name, she says, that guy that picked me up is like the man of my dreams.
Yeah, right.
He's like the man of my dreams. It's like, why don't you use his name? Like, if you really feel that affectionate about him, you'd be like, John is the person I've been looking for. You know, it's like, maybe that would convince me a little bit more, but just the way that this is written is so half-assed.
It is weird because, you know, she had to have told her dad the guy's name at least when she was going on this date with his granddaughter.
Right.
Like,
and he knows his daughter.
Just say, it's just some guy that called me. I don't even know his name. Like, there's no way, I guarantee you her dad remembers the name that she told him initially.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm guarantee you that dude was, the father was watching this guy. I mean, if somebody comes to date your daughter, you're watching everything about, what's his name? What's his last name? Where's he from? What does his parents do? What is it? Yeah, I want to know everything about this motherfucker.
Yeah, and a lot of this information that we get from this case is actually from a book that her father wrote after the fact. And this book is called The Color of Night: A Young Mother, a Missing Child, and a Cold-Blooded Killer. That's written actually by Tim Timmerman.
Yeah,
Rachel's father.
And if her father was intelligent and insightful enough to write a book, this man he didn't buy this. Not one.
He knew what was going on at the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm sure her father was skeptical of that letter that he'd received, supposedly from his daughter, but I'm sure he was also holding out hope that somehow that letter was legit. But unfortunately, weeks would go by with no word from Rachel or baby Shannon. And then on June 5th, they became very concerned when Marvin had his preliminary hearing, but Rachel did not show up. Without her testimony, of course, authorities were forced to drop the rape charges against him, and he'd gotten exactly what he wanted.
Yep.
Then 11 days later, the prosecutor for the case received a letter allegedly from Rachel that was postmarked from Little Rock, Arkansas. This letter said that Rachel had tried to have intercourse with Marvin, so he's sticking to this fucking story that, she had wanted to be with him. He refused. She made up the rape allegation. The prosecutor, of course, did not believe that Rachel wrote this letter. She believed that Rachel was in danger and possibly already dead at this point.
Okay, let me ask you something real quick. Let's pause. Why would he want to send a letter to the prosecution?
I was thinking the same thing. What does he have to gain to this, from this, right? He already had the charges dropped. Why drag this on now?
Yeah, what are you doing? Are you just trying...
Maybe he's worried about a murder investigation, and he's just trying to postpone that, and really convince authorities that she's run off. I guess just to postpone a murder investigation.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think. Is that...
Because he hasn't been brought up on charges of murder yet. He got off on the rape, but, we know he kills her, so...
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's all he's doing. He's just trying to buy some time. Or maybe he's trying to get people off his scent altogether.
Yeah.
That's a stupid way to do it, though. You should just fucking cut your losses and just go hide somewhere. Piece of shit. He's all the way in Arkansas, too, dude. From Michigan. There's no telling where those bodies... Anyways, that's crazy to me.
We would soon find out where one of them was.
Yeah, true.
So the same day that the prosecutor received a letter, Rachel's father receives another letter, postmarked from Little Rock as well. This letter, allegedly written by Rachel, said that she and Shannon were fine and that she would call him soon. And it kept mentioning that she was with a man named Delbert, which is bizarre because we know that's not the name of the guy that picked her up. And it's almost like, whoever is forcing her to write this is trying to get them off their scent, or lead them off to a different trail.
Oh, so she did mention a man named Delbert?
She kept mentioning a man named Delbert in this letter, this second letter written to Rachel's father.
Maybe she never mentioned the name of the guy to her father, for real. Maybe she didn't.
I find it hard to believe. He kept calling. He had to have, at some point, he's calling her father's home. I'm sure her father answered, this is the 90s. I'm sure her father answered the phone himself a few times, and he had to, say, hi, this is so-and-so. Can I speak to your daughter?
Right.
What are the odds she answered the phone every time? He had to have known the name of the guy, at least.
Exactly. That's weird to me. It's just this other name. Maybe maybe Marvin is thinking he's
just trying to convolute everything for the investigation. He's adding more and more towns and names and
let's just
letters.
Make it really difficult to know what the fuck's going on. He was good at that.
What's crazy is that he had her write all these letters at once before he kills her. These letters were now at this point written weeks prior. On the night that she was killed, he forced her to write these letters, and this is like a long game thing where he holds on to a few of them and then mails them later on.
Yeah, maybe.
So in that letter, that her father had received, Shannon said that Rachel said that her and Shannon were fine, that she would call him soon. Of course, he does not receive a call from her. And tragically, 2 weeks later, on the morning of July 5th, 1 month after the disappearance of Rachel and baby Shannon, the decomposed body of Rachel Timmerman would be found on Oxford Lake. And it's so creepy to think about how she was killed. It's horrible. This lake apparently has 3 feet of water and 60 to 80 feet of muck below that. Ugh. And Rachel had been wrapped in chains and cement blocks, and those had been padlocked to the chains. She'd also had duct tape put over her eyes and mouth, and her hands were tied behind her back. Disturbingly, the autopsy determined that Rachel had been thrown into the lake alive. So he throws her in with these cement blocks or these cinder blocks tied to her, chained to her.
Right.
And she basically gets taken down into this muck where she drowns.
Ugh.
About as
graphic,
sickening of a way as you can go as possible.
Absolutely.
It just makes it worse that it's not even water, right? It's muck, you're just in this abyss.
And it gives you insight in that what a shitty person Marvin is. It's because if you just wanted to preserve yourself, if you're just trying to get through life, why not
just wanted to get rid of the witness,
right?
You could have easily just shot her in the back of the head when she wasn't looking,
right? And then freaking dumped her body.
No, he got off on the torture of it.
You wanted to tie her up. You wanted to torture her. You wanted to throw her in a lake alive. All that.
The while, the worst part for her probably is knowing that he's also going to kill her baby as well.
Absolutely. And having no control over that in that situation.
And that's probably why she went along writing the letters for him, is like at threat of her child. You know, like, I guarantee you he used that against her. Like, if you don't write these letters for me, I'm going to do something horrible to your baby.
Yeah. So the letters were confirmed to be her handwriting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they were hers. So you have to assume that right before he killed her that he forced her to write these letters.
Yep.
However, no trace of Rachel's daughter Shannon has ever been found. But you can only assume the worst on that.
Yeah.
The reason that Rachel, that she was found, even though she had these cinder blocks chained to her, was the bloating of the body actually allowed the body to raise up to the surface, even with the weight of those bricks.
Well,
so my theory is if he did the same to the baby, that the baby, even after bloating, as sick as this is, wouldn't have the power to raise a cinder block or something like that, with the baby's body being so small.
Right.
Because we would later find out that behind prison bars, he drew a map of the surrounding lake, the lake where he had dumped Rachel's body, we presume, and put 3 X's on it. And with one of the X's below writing words saying body found, but the other 2 X's not saying that. So you have to, it's safe to assume that he put 3 bodies in that lake, and we can do the math on who that would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So authorities would theorize that whoever kidnapped Rachel and forced her to write the letters on June 3rd, they also, that after dumping Rachel into the lake, the killer then mailed the letters. Authorities went into Marvin's residence following this and found cinder blocks on his property that matched those found tied to Rachel's body. Also, keys that matched the padlock used to secure Rachel's body were found.
Wow. This guy's dumb.
Yeah, for real. However, Marvin Gabrion had fled the area before police could arrest him. Now, another man comes up missing, believe it or not. John Weeks, the man Marvin had commissioned. Yep, the man that Marvin had commissioned to take Rachel out on the date. His whereabouts were now at this point also unknown. Unsurprisingly, Marvin was the last person to see him alive in late June of 1997. Weeks is presumed
Marvin's
dead.
not going to leave that dude as a loose end. Come on.
No. Nope, he used him and threw him out like trash.
Yep.
And it's very possible that he killed him the same night that he killed Rachel. Like they went out together to that lake. They were seen camping. Other campers had talked to them. They asked if they could put their boat in a certain spot near these people's campground. So they were seen together with a woman that would later be determined to be Rachel, by people out camping in this area. And it's very possible that he killed Rachel, the baby, and Weeks
John
as well,
Weeks,
all in that same night. Yeah.
Yep.
Weeks, his girlfriend at the time, had said that he'd seen her boyfriend hanging out with this guy Marvin, and that they had been talking on the phone to this girl Rachel. She was actually getting upset at Weeks because she's like, "What girl are you talking to on the phone?" And he explained to her that he owed a favor to his buddy and that they had to do something with this girl or whatever. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things tying Marvin to this.
Yeah, there is.
So one person he didn't get to that was a witness to all this, maybe it had to do with him being a family member. He didn't want to kill his own nephew, but Marvin's nephew, Mikey Gabrion, would ultimately lead police to a campsite that had frequently been used by his uncle, where Marvin Gabrion's tent was found, along with bolt cutters, chain, duct tape, a woman's hair clip, and nipples for a baby bottle.
So that's kind of that's kind of damning evidence, huh?
Mm-hmm. You could say so.
Yeah.
What is this guy that doesn't have kids? Well, what is he doing with a baby bottle nipples
and a woman's hair clip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So authorities would at this point bring in the FBI to investigate this bizarre case. They were able to do so because where Rachel's body was found was actually a national park. So this would come into play later on with the death penalty, because Michigan is a non-death penalty state. The fact that it was on federal land, that we'll get more to that later. But they bring in the FBI, and the FBI discovers that Marvin was using the alias of a man named Robert Allen. There was a real man named Robert Allen. The real Robert Allen was a man who had vanished in 1995. Shocker. Another person close to Marvin that disappears.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they would come to find out that Marvin was actually living in a home that he had purchased under Robert Allen's name after assuming his identity. At the time that Rachel's body was found, he was living in this home, and he was cashing the disability checks of this Robert Allen, who, apparently authorities believed was still alive, even though he was long dead at that point. Allen had been a mentally disabled transient who had been receiving Social Security when he went missing, and those checks continued to be cashed by Marvin.
God,
So
we
from
see this
1995 to
often.
1997, Marvin was living under this guy's name, cashing his checks in a house that, was under this guy's name.
Right.
The search for Marvin would last 2 months until they received a tip that he was set to receive one of those Social Security checks from a post office in Sherman, New York. So FBI agents covertly staked out the location where he was arrested and left as he left the post office. So he goes to pick up that disability check under Robert Allen's name, and that's how they get him.
Finally.
Yeah. So he would immediately be convicted of Social Security fraud in July of 1998 for his use of Allen's checks and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison.
Jeez.
I'd like to say of course, you steal from the government, you go down right away. I'm sure they set the bond a lot higher than when he violently raped a woman because he stole money from the government.
Yeah, you don't steal money from the government, bro.
Of course. That's how they got Capone, right? Tax evasion.
Yeah, they'll find you quick. You can kill all the people you want, just don't steal money from the government.
Kill and rape innocent people, all that stuff, but steal money from the government, man, you're going down. Or if you sell some weed, you're going down.
Oh, man, can't put up with that.
Especially in certain states.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So he's written many letters, this fucking scumbag, to Rachel's family over the years, and has every excuse in the book for who could have done it. He still claims he didn't do this and blames everyone under the sun but himself. He also had the balls to write to Shannon's father, Tim, and started talking about a nonprofit organization that he wanted to start called No More Missing Children, and he wanted permission to use Shannon's picture for this organization, and actually asked Rachel's father to send a picture of Shannon, baby Shannon, the baby that we believe he killed.
Wow.
It makes you wonder what he was really wanting to do with that picture. Was he going to get gratification out of that? What was he going to do? And her father sadly did end up sending a picture just in hopes that this piece of scum would actually, admit to what he did with the baby, where the baby's body is, so they could give it some closure.
Yeah.
He
never heard anything.
He sent the picture and never got what he wanted out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when the map that Marvin had drawn surfaces. He draws this map of the lake with 3 X's on it. The lake was Oxford Lake. One of the X's had the words underneath it, body found, and one of 3. So it's safe to assume that there were 3 bodies in that lake. One could be baby Shannon. The other could be the man that threw the party.
John Weeks.
Oh yeah, John. Sorry, John Weeks. Couldn't have been Wayne Davis's body would be found in a different lake in July of 2002. Canoeists would find Wayne Davis's body, the man who had thrown the party, in Twinwood Lake, in another body of water in the same national forest where Rachel's body was found. So same national forest, also federal land, yeah.
Yep. So he could be charged with this one as well.
Mm-hmm. That same year, Marvin Gabrion was tried for the murder of Rachel Timmerman. The prosecution presented testimony of multiple witnesses, including Marvin's propensity for violence and threatening behaviors, including accusations of other physical and sexual assaults. 2 witnesses testified that their homes had been set on fire following altercations with him.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. This dude's volatile, man.
Another woman described how he trained a rifle on her and her 2-year-old child as she walked to her car one day. He then climbed into his own car and followed them for several miles.
Jeez.
These are the kind of things that I just feel like the bond should have been set a lot higher, and in that initial preliminary hearing for the rape.
When you have a history of this over and over and over again.
They know the kind of character this guy is. They know what he is. You can't set the bond at any level that could even be attained by his family.
Right.
I'm still confused as to the whole bond thing, why it's even a thing to begin with, but that's another story.
Yeah. Well, that's just more money to be made. That's why.
I mean, I understand it for, most offenses, but violent rape, things like that, I just don't think there should be bond. I just don't think you should be allowed to walk the streets until this is settled,
Yeah, until you're proven innocent. Yeah.
Yeah. So the disappearances of the other men surrounding the case were also admitted to, or at least the jury was able to hear, the fact that he was near these men when they went missing.
Right.
And this trial would have its fair share of drama. Let's just say Court TV would have loved to have had the footage from Marvin's trial for Rachel's murder because of his erratic behavior. The trial judge actually made the decision to deny the defendant's right to fire his counsel and defend himself in court due to his erratic behavior and frequent disruption of the court proceedings. At one point, he actually punched his defense attorney in the face in full view of the jury, and he committed 40 major infractions while at the Calhoun County Jail.
Jesus, why is there any question to this? Like, if you're sitting on the jury and you
How
see
does he think this is going to help
criminal,
him?
right? You see this violent criminal punch someone in court. Like, you can't even...
punch his own defense attorney.
You can't even withhold these actions in court.
Yep.
When you could be punished, it's just like, that's a no-brainer to me. Like, yeah, this guy needs to be locked away.
That's just the start. He also filed numerous bizarre motions using, quote, abusive and obscene language. He accused the judge of sleeping with and impregnating 13 and 14-year-old girls and called his lawyers and the judge satanic and Hitler.
On what grounds? That's crazy. Right? You just making shit up. You're just like, yeah, I'm bad, but these people are really bad. They're satanic and Hitler. That's like some shit you would just make up when you're just trying to make somebody seem bad, but you don't really have anything on them. You're like, that guy's like Hitler or something. This guy's insane.
Yeah, the defense countered that his temperament and actions were the results of multiple car accidents and that he had resulted in brain injuries as well as a troubled childhood. The jury wasn't buying it. Marvin Gabrion was convicted, and despite being sentenced in a non-death penalty state, he was sentenced to death. And this was due to the fact that he dumped Rachel's body on federal grounds, and the feds came in and they threw the death penalty at him, which spawned United States versus Gabrion. It's considered a landmark case for its use of the death penalty in a non-death penalty state. Capital punishment had been abolished in Michigan since 1846, and Michigan was the first English-speaking jurisdiction to eliminate the death penalty.
Wow.
However, federal jurisdiction allowed prosecutors to seek the death penalty in this case, and Rachel's body, having been found on federal land in Manistee National Forest, allowed the prosecutors to try Marvin in federal court and seek the death penalty. He would be the first person in the United States to receive the death penalty for a crime committed in a non-death penalty state since the federal death penalty was reinstated in 1988, as well as the first person to be sentenced to death in the state of Michigan since 1937, when Anthony Tony Chebatoris, a bank robber who also killed some people during these bank robberies, had been put to death in Michigan back in 1937.
Oh, okay.
Which he seemed like, I looked into him a bit, he would be a fun case to do as well.
Yeah, why not? During the Depression, man.
Bank robber from the 30s.
Yeah.
He would see the rope. He got hung.
Oh.
In Michigan. And that, yeah.
Wow. 1937 just doesn't seem old enough to be hanging people, does it?
I guess.
I mean,
I don't know. I think I still think it's one of the better ways to go about it,
No, I'm not saying.
Cheap,
I'm just
effective.
saying I feel like it just seems too early or too late.
Yeah.
In
right.
I don't know, just in civilization. It's just 19. It's like, man, he was hung in the 30s. God, not like the 1830s. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Just it's crazy. But yeah, that would be a good case to look into.
Mm-hmm. So in 2011, Marvin would appeal both the conviction and the sentence. The appeal resulted in the conviction being upheld, but the death sentence being overturned. And we see this time and time again with the death penalty.
Yep.
It's so hard to actually carry it out these days.
Especially in a non-death
But then in
penalty
2013,
state.
Oh yeah. But then in 2013, the sentence appeal was overturned and the death penalty was reinstated. I think the fact that the feds are involved, it actually makes it more likely to be carried out as opposed to like the state having to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And you can kind of relieve yourself of consequences or of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's the state of Michigan. You don't feel like you've really went against your beliefs.
Like it's your fault.
You know what I'm saying? It's not your fault. It's like, well, the feds, they had our hands tied. We had to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Marvin Gabrion is currently on death row at United States Penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana, and still claims to be innocent and has been placing blame on everyone imaginable except himself ever since, sending letters to people and being a general asshat.
Yeah.
And even though they did find Wayne Davis's body in that adjacent lake in the same national forest, they have not charged him with the murder of Wayne Davis. And of course, John Weeks, never been found, hasn't been charged with that one either. And nor did they charge him for Shannon's, because I mean they never found baby Shannon's body, so I don't sadly no charges for that one either. It's like we know without a doubt he's killed 5-6 people, probably a lot more. If you just kill this willy-nilly, as we've seen in the past. I'm sure he's responsible for more death.
He could have sold the baby as well, like John Robinson did in The Slave Master. Remember he killed that one girl who had the baby, and then he ended up, I know it was to a family member. I'm sure he wasn't that brazen, but he could have absolutely sold Shannon on a black market or dropped her at a fire station, like no questions asked. Like that's the whole point.
I feel like she would have turned up though if that were the case.
That's true, especially with DNA and whatnot now. With DNA testing, it's kind of hard to hide anyone at all, anywhere.
But also in a small town, a young girl and her baby goes missing, and then a baby is turned into the fire station. Like they would have connected those dots. Even if it was like a different state that he turned the baby into.
But I was about to, but I mean, you're talking a different state. He went all the way down to Arkansas. Like we know for a fact she was in Arkansas.
Well, let's hope that she's still, that something along those lines happened and that she's still alive somehow. But I think we all know the likelihood of what happened.
The likelihood of her still being alive is pretty slim. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
She'd have to have a whole different identity and everything.
If this case didn't sufficiently piss you off, I don't know what will, because Rachel and baby Shannon and Wayne Davis,
John Weeks,
even John Weeks, they were all let down by the system by the fact that Marvin's bail was only set at $75K, an amount that his mother was able to come up with, and he was able to cut ties with that violent rape that he had committed and basically get rid of all the witnesses before his trial.
Yep.
Aside from his nephew, which you have to think his nephew wasn't going to testify against his uncle out of fear, and also, it's his uncle.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can have the solace in the fact that he ultimately did get the death penalty, and hopefully he will see that before he dies. But other than that...
Yeah. I believe he's 68 now, sitting on death row.
Yeah. See, his time's running out pretty quick.
So...
That's like...
Yeah. And the fact that he appealed his sentence and appealed his death sentence tells you he doesn't want to be killed. So I say kill him.
Yeah, exactly. If he doesn't want to be killed, then kill him. If he's like in his cell trying to commit suicide, then keep him alive. Whatever he doesn't want, we'll do it.
Right.
Yeah, because this piece of shit.
Well, I'll tell you something you do want for your armpits, and that's Oh My Gaia.
You're right. You gotta want some Oh My Gaia, man. You got to. Because Oh My Gaia is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. At Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. And guys, there's tons of scents to choose from vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, fireside, bergamot amber, pear, sweet pea, sailor, barbershop, and of course, we have our own scent called True Crime Pine. If you don't know where to start, that's a great place to start, guys, with Oh My Gaia. And because you're True Crime...
I have that in my pits as we speak right now. Some True Crime Pine is in my pits,
Absolutely. Yes. I always keep a jar on hand. I have a jar that's opened right now that I cycle through with Egyptian musk and what's one of them? Barbershop. I like Fireside, Egyptian musk, Barbershop, and True Crime Pine. I got those four, cycling between those.
True Crime Pine is unisex too. It's a great scent.
Most of them are really.
It's not too masculine or feminine. It's just a nice appealing.
It really is. It really is. You could do a lot with it. But because you guys are True Crime Guys listeners, you can use the word creeper for 15% off your order at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram or on ohmygaia.com. That's OHMYGAIA.com, guys. And again, that's code word creeper for 15% off your order. And we also have a new advertiser today.
So excited for this. We've been searching for a CBD company to work with because both of us, especially me, I'm very reliant on CBD at this point. It helps me a lot with anxiety and chronic pain and things like that. So I reached out to this company hoping basically to advertise for them for product,
right.
Not even for money, just like, can you just send me your stuff and we'll talk about you guys? And they've sent us a fantastic package that we've been using for a week now. The amazing quality products. So we're talking about tonic CBD. It's true. Not all CBD products are created equal. From how the hemp is grown and processed to how it's formulated and delivered into your body, every step of that process goes into making the products that affect your ultimate experience with it. That's why tonic products really stand out. Founder Brittany Carbone created her own original formulas using CBD, adaptogens, herbs, and superfoods back in 2017 and has been working to deliver the most effective, intentional, and sustainable products possible. Tonic Craft cultivates their hemp on their certified organic family farm in upstate New York. That hemp travels only 30 minutes to their state-of-the-art manufacturing and distribution facility, where it's turned into finished product and sent to you, ensuring only the highest quality vibes at every stage of the process. Tonic's farm-to-table CBD plus botanical blends are uniquely formulated to provide targeted support where you need it most. Each and every high-quality ingredient is thoughtfully selected for its ability to support and enhance the benefits of CBD, resulting in a more effective, well-rounded, and consistent wellness solution for your mind and body. They have a variety of blends and different products. You can, but so far my favorite has been the Chill Tonic, which helps a ton with anxiety. It has ashwagandha, lemon balm, and passion flower to deliver a super calming effect. That is also really cool that they use black seed oil in it in a lot of their blends as well.
Yes.
Black seed oil is an antioxidant powerhouse, and it's great for your immune system, but it also just scratches the surface of what superfood can really do. There's a lot of stuff coming out about this, CBD. As a preventative measure for COVID. And I'm not going to say too much with that because I don't want to, make any false claims or anything like that, but you can look into it. There's studies that have been coming out about CBD, and it's something that you could use regularly to help fight COVID if you get it.
Especially in the tincture form, in the oil form. Yes. Because
tincture is my favorite. It's the best bang for your buck is tincture. If you're
absolutely.
trying to get as much CBD for your buck.
Absolutely. I also love the, what's the OG? I like that one for a start of the day. It's kind of like
I love Grounded at night. I use Grounded.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Take that right before bed.
And then there's also the vape pen as well.
Right, which is for like more immediate effects of anxiety relief. It's like chill, but through the vape pen, right?
Yeah, I do the tincture in the morning and at night. I do two different tinctures. I usually do Grounded at night and chill in the morning, and then I hit the vape pen periodically throughout the day if I feel a little bit anxious.
Nice.
I love how easy it is to verify the quality of Tonic's products. There's actually a microchip looking thing on the top of the packaging, which allows you to tap your phone on the top of the tube and reveal the third-party lab reports, product information, details about their farm, and even helpful blog posts to provide you with some CBD education. With values rooted in quality, integrity, and sustainability, Tonic is committed to creating plant-based wellness products that are good for the people and good for the planet. Visit tonicvibes.com to learn more and use code CREEPER for 20% off your order.
Whoa,
that's tonicvibes.com. Yep, tonicvibes.com, code word CREEPER at checkout, 20% off. Can't beat that.
No, you cannot. Go check it out, guys, especially if you're considering CBD or just want to try it. It's a great opportunity. Save some money and get some top-shelf product.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
You want to talk about our Patreon page real quick? That's why we weren't. If you're a freeloader, if you only listen on our, on a normal podcast app, a subscriber to our Patreon page, you didn't get an episode last week. That's because we did an exclusive episode for Patreon members only. You can access that at patreon.com/truecrimeguys. $2 a month gets you access to that episode. All of our other premium episodes that we've done over the course of the last 3.5, 4 years that we've had a Patreon.
Yeah,
we've done so many big hitters. A lot of the main serial killers. If you don't see them on our main feed, it's probably because we did them over on Patreon, and $2 gets you access to all of those episodes.
Right.
And then there's more content. If you're willing to go up to the $5 tier, you can get Just the Banter, another show that we do every Friday where we just hang out, shoot the shit. We interact with our listeners and Patreon members.
Yep.
Those episodes are usually an hour plus.
And we just released
more content.
We just released episode 64 of Just the Banter.
Yeah.
And this past Patreon exclusive was number 59. So
there you go.
There's 59 Patreon exclusive episodes available on Patreon right now, and that's not even counting Just the Banter and tons of other extra content that we have.
So well over 100 recordings that are an hour plus, some of those episodes being up to 3 hours long.
Yes.
Some that stick out are the Jim Jones episode, the Erons, the East Area Rapist or Golden State Killer. That episode was super long.
Yes.
So many of those episodes are super long, and you get all that for $2 a month or $5 a month. Then you can even go up to $10 a month if you wanted to actually interact with us. Once a month, we sit down for a Zoom call with the $10 creepers and just hang out for half an hour with you guys. So
yep,
there's also that.
All right. And if you're
already
about
our other show,
about to say, if you're already on Patreon and you've caught up everything True Crime Guys, you can check out the rest of True Crime Guys productions like Strange and Unexplained. New episodes come out every single Monday on the free platform, as well as every Monday on the Strange Unexplained Patreon. We release Strange Shorts, where we talk about more up-to-date, more lighter, silly things that are happening in the crime world or just in the world in general. But Strange and Unexplained, wherever you listen. And we also, once a month, for our Patreon exclusive for Strange and Unexplained, we do Sandu Stories, which we just released, Sandu Stories Chapter 13 on patreon.com/SandU podcast. And it was based on our Slave Master episode. If you guys have listened to the Slave Master episode here on True Crime Guys, John Edward Robinson, this was a true crime what-if story, if you will.
An alternate ending to that one, which is much more fun.
Exactly. Much more fun. The killer kind of gets what they deserve. And that's
John ends up in a garage with me and a drill, and it's a good time.
It gets pretty crazy. Yeah. And you guys get to see some of our other talents here at True Crime Guys, some of the other things that we like to dive into, and we get to act and play parts, and it's a lot of fun for us. We have outside voices. Lauren's wife does voices occasionally.
Yeah, she's cutting her teeth with some voice acting.
Man, she's killing it,
quite talented at it.
She is. Yeah. She's a natural. She's an absolute natural. So a lot to be discovered over on Strange and Unexplained, guys, if you're all caught up on True Crime Guys Productions. All right. Anything else?
All right. Does that about do it?
I think that's it, man.
All right. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Keep creeping.
Keep creeping, guys.
True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder. True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder charming.
You hush your mouth, boy.